good soup.
Oh wow, that looks like Daenerys trying to liberate King's Landing. Hello everybody, I'm Bo Oliver, and before we start this review, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Raid Shadow Legends is here to change everything you thought you knew about mobile games. It's one of the most immersive experiences you'll find on a smartphone, and the game is totally free. It has all the features you'd expect from a brand new RPG title. Amazing storyline, awesome 3D graphics, giant boss fights, PvP battles, and hundreds of champions to collect and customize. The attention to detail is honestly insane. The performance of these graphics are just incredible. Just look at these characters. Raid's special launch tournament is happening right now, so go to the description of this video, download Raid only through our link, and receive 50,000 silver immediately. And here's the best part, you will be automatically entered into their special launch tournament, where you can compete with us and other players for crazy in-game prizes and physical prize packs. You can win collection edition figurines, power banks, t-shirts, and more, and winners will get them delivered straight to their house. So go to our description below, download Raid, and good luck. We'll see you there. Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 6, the Iron Throne series finale review. I'm back, Bo Oliver, here with Aaron, the Nerd Soup Monkey, and Marissa. And like every week, the last week, the final time, we will be discussing Game of Thrones series finale spoiler discussion, so if you haven't seen it, don't watch it. And of course, you can listen to us on iTunes at the Nerd Soup Podcast, SoundCloud, Spotify, all those good places. Like we always do, we start with Marissa because me and Aaron released our review last night, or earlier today, I'm not sure. Time is flat. But Marissa, I'm assuming that you weren't thrilled with the series finale.
You can say that.
Yes.
I feel like all season, with the exception of like last episode, I've been trying to give it some slack. Like, oh, we need to see how it ends. And then this episode happened, and I can say with certainty that it was disappointing. Like the whole season, just in general, not a fan. I'm a little sad that this is how the show ended. I wanted there to be more time. Because my issue is all of the things that happened, I think I could have been sold on most of the stuff that happened in this season if the characters have been given more time to breathe. Just more time in general. Like if it wasn't just bouncing from plot point to plot point, I feel like I could have been okay with this.
That's really the biggest criticism. It's the criticism that everybody seems to be making, that we've said it to death, so I guess we'll just repeat it. There's just not enough time for these plot points to play out. There are moments in this episode that should have had me just so emotional. I mean, we'll just go right to it. The death of Daenerys Targaryen. Somebody spoiled it for me. I don't know if I would have felt differently if that didn't happen, but it felt so weightless and emotionless. And it was telegraphed. You knew that she was going to die because there was only 2 episodes, or an episode and a half, maybe, of her being perceived as a villain by these characters, of people working against her because they know what she's going to do. That should have been a great political battle that took place over the course of 5 to 6 episodes. Jon Snow's decision to kill her, you could see that he's obviously conflicted, and at times he's in denial. He's trying to justify what she did. He should have been mulling over that for weeks, maybe. But for that quick turnaround to happen, for it to be so obvious, it just feels weightless.
Especially because Jon, that has happened to him. He was betrayed by his own people because they thought he was doing the wrong thing. They didn't agree with what he was doing. And for him to not struggle more with the decision, to one, he loves Daenerys, and also now he has to decide, like, does she need to die? Is he the one who can make that decision? And he kind of cried a little bit. And then
He kind of cried a little bit.
Oh man, it's gonna sound like I was crying. I mean, I was laughing at that.
No, it's fine.
But instead, Jon cried with Tyrion, and then he killed her, and they don't even show him actually stabbing her. It's just they kiss, and then, oh no, blood's coming out of her mouth.
She definitely got
it's
stabbed.
The Pikachu face.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of you there. I mean, I think I said it on our review that, this is probably, I'm pretty certain it's going to be George's ending too. And I think we said, one of us did, that I'm fine with all these points. I don't know if people hate how it happened or like where all these characters ended up or how we got there. So, and I think some people just hate how like Bran's king, Jon's back at the Night's Watch, and that aspect of it. But if it was properly developed, I feel like people who don't like where these characters ended up can be sold, like you said, on it all ending this way. But unfortunately, the episode really ended 40 minutes into it, then we got the epilogue, and they tried to cram everything into that last 40 minutes, and it just felt very, very rushed, very awkward, especially the whole, I don't even know, the dragon pit scene. I don't even know what to call it, but that was, I mean, Edmure Tully, man, what are you doing here? And like speaking, like you can sit there, but just everything about that I wasn't really a fan of. But
Robert Aaron was looking at him like, we're just here to sit.
Yeah.
We're just glorified cameos. Come on, bro. That's ridiculous that man thought he was going to be king.
I don't know what he was thinking.
What's on his resume?
He
got
was like,
captured?
yeah, locked in a dungeon.
Married a
for
hot
bit.
Frey girl. That's not bad.
But yeah, I mean, everything, while I was watching it, the first 40 minutes, I was absolutely loved. And I think you were saying that it just took so long. We had Tyrion walking through King's Landing for a while, and it just, at some point, I think I was watching, I'm like, wait, 20 minutes has passed, and it's like, we need to get going a little. It's the fucking last season. And then that's when I kind of figured out, like, stuff's going to start moving too quickly, and that's how it happened. And I think it's just a product of the constriction on time that was placed on this season.
Well, they asked for these episodes. That's the thing. It wasn't even a restriction. HBO wanted more seasons, and I think as the season is now over and as I sit with it more, there's just going to be more and more blame and bitterness towards D&D as we separate from the season, because they had the opportunity to stretch this show out. And some blame should be put on George R. R. Martin for not finishing the books, for only giving them plot points. It's a lot more difficult when you're adapting material that hasn't actually been written, because you don't know what the author intends for these characters to go through to get to that point. So you kind of just have to make that up in a short time span. The highlights of this episode, I would say Emilia Clarke, Peter Dinklage, they both gave brilliant performances. You can submit this for their Emmy nominations next year. Emilia Clarke has been the standout all season. The speech that she gives, just the conviction in her voice, the way that she's able to speak in a fictional language, and you get everything from emotion. You can turn off the subtitles and get what she's speaking about, understand what she's saying. That's how Tyrion and Jon kind of did it.
Well, I think Tyrion, he kind of understood. Jon was like, he just heard Winterfell. He's like, wait a minute. That's where I'm from.
Winterfell! Yeah, the North. And
yeah.
Peter Dinklage is still the best actor in the show. Stand by that. Put him up against anybody in the show, and it's an acting tour de force. We were worried that Tyrion might not have much to do in this season. They gave him a lot to do in the finale.
It was kind of his episode, really, which is weird considering just Jon's character. And I've been trying to wrap my head. I saw this on Twitter and on the internet. It's like, what's the point of him being a Targaryen? And
But actually, like, what is the point?
I don't know.
It's kind of a catalyst for Daenerys, I guess, just having him being a threat to her rule.
But she didn't even seem concerned about it.
I do think she would have gone Mad Queen without, like, the threat of Jon.
No, there's other ways. They could have replaced that with something else and it would have made total sense.
But that doesn't even seem like that was the catalyst for her to go Mad Queen. It was
'Cause
all these other things.
And it ended up that no one else besides, like, the handful of people who knew about Jon being a Targaryen, like, it doesn't seem like anyone finds out after that.
Well, and he still had support from the north, and even in the scene after the long night when Tormund's like, who gets on a dragon? A king, and she's just looking at how everyone is embracing Jon, and she knows that she'll never get that. No one knows he's a Targaryen at that point, except for...
Yeah, it's just a guy.
Yeah.
This is a really cool
Jon
guy.
Snow, but he still would have been king in the north. Like, you could have done a lot of the plot points with Jon this season without him having a Targaryen.
I love that too, though. She's saying, I'm never going to get the love that you received from your very close friends while they're all drunk, while we're celebrating not being killed. I'll never get that. What? Why is she projecting that moment on the entire
I think she's
population of Westeros?
What she wants is another Misa moment. Like, everywhere she goes, she wants a Misa moment. And she's only had one Misa moment.
So she's upset that she.
It's a hell of a moment though for her. I mean, she was probably like, "Wow."
She's been chasing it the whole show. Basically, she got her Misa moment, and now she thinks every new place I go, like I'm liberating them, they should be grateful. Like her speech, I think it was that speech that might have sold me more on her becoming Mad Queen Daenerys than burning down King's Landing.
In the first episode of the season, Jon Snow tells her that you need to earn the respect of the North. How else would you earn the respect of the North than defending them from extinction on the back of your dragons, looking like a badass? You have the great hero moment in the Long Night. You're the reason that they won. At that point, the northern armies, the northern civilization, they should worship you as the Dragon Queen. Tormund has that moment where he toasts to her. That's why there's so many inconsistencies with the writing to get her to this point of madness that you can nitpick, and eventually nitpicks become giant holes, and that's what makes the season disappointing. You have nitpicks for every show, but there are just so many inconsistencies this season. That's why it's disappointing, specifically for Daenerys Targaryen, and the season hinges on her turn to madness. So if that doesn't work,
really.
then the season doesn't work. Yeah, seriously, it's really the show.
I liked her though, like just the way she carried herself this episode. Like
She was fantastic.
She wasn't just like mad. She was more rational in her madness. It's not like she was just visibly like insane in this moment. Like she was just rational. She was rallying her remaining troops, and even when she was talking to Jon and talking to him about what they're going to do and how how she wants to liberate the entire world and stuff like that. I don't know. It was very. I think we compared her like Thanos, kind of, where like you kind of like you're like, oh, maybe it makes a little sense.
Thanos, a little bit of Littlefinger, where she's trying to rationalize the decisions that she made. I wish I wanted to see that play out over a couple of episodes, trying to manipulate Jon. And they just condensed it into one conversation, where at the end of the conversation, where she has the line, they don't get to choose, talking about all the people of the world. She's basically saying, I am law, and that's what triggers Jon to make the decision to stab her, because he's trying to talk her down. He's trying to talk her out of it. But that's a 2 to 3 minute conversation that should have played out over a series of episodes.
And half of it she was bragging about how she can't count.
She's literally the 21 kid. That's Viserys. What's 19 plus 10? 9 plus 10. 21? No, you idiot.
Though I do think the scene of her walking up to the Iron Throne and like seeing it, I liked it. That was a beautiful scene.
Yes.
And I wanted her to sit down in the throne. Like she just blew up King's Landing, but I wanted her to sit in the Iron Throne for like 5 seconds. But as soon as she didn't, I was like, Jon's going to kill her. Like, she's going to die.
Well, I said out loud, Jon's going to walk in right before she touches it. I knew she was never going to sit on it. I would have preferred that she did. To say that she won for 5 seconds, Jon Snow walking in, seeing her on the throne, it's similar to... There were a lot of parallels with him and Ned. There's one small one when he's walking up to Daenerys when she's giving the speech, and he's kind of pushing everybody out of the way. It's similar to Ned when he was approaching Arya when she was found by the Baratheon men.
Yeah.
He's kind of pushing everybody out of the way. He's more concerned about his daughter. And it would have been similar to Ned walking into the throne room and finding Jaime.
Yeah.
On the throne, you have this person who you perceive as could possibly be evil. You have philosophical differences with. I wish he would have sat on it.
Well, it was like the prophecy, right? Instead of snow, it was ash, which was definitely ash, right?
I was confused, honestly.
I really thought it was snow.
In some places it seemed like ash, in some places it seemed like snow. And I was like, isn't it winter? Like, where is it all the snow?
Winter, like, never came, really. Because even when they're at the wall, it's like...
There's a little piece of grass.
And it's like, oh, how long... What's the time span of this season and the last 2 seasons?
I don't know, because these winters are supposed to be...
They said this might be
generations.
the longest winter yet. And it's like, oh... maybe 2 wars.
That died of the Night King. Now it's just regular seasons.
Maybe, but they had long winters before.
I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Well, going back to the prophecy, people always read it as winter had hit King's Landing, but it's also the throne was covered in snow. So Jon Snow would eventually take the Iron Throne.
It's like a nuclear winter.
Right, but it's also when Melisandre is looking into the fire and she's saying, "Show me Azor Ahai," and all Rolar does is show me snow. She just can't connect it.
Hey, Jon Snow.
Oh, Jon Snow. Hey, Jon Snow. Her not sitting on the throne, people are going to be disappointed by that, but the decision by Drogon to destroy the throne was one of my favorite scenes of the episode. People are saying that it's a little silly. Dragons are smart, man.
You just gave him a look like, yeah, I think it's silly.
Yeah, I think it's silly.
You wanted him to take the throne, too?
No, it was
He
just
sits on it.
He is the rightful heir. He is the child.
it kind of like
I'm king
I don't
now.
I don't hate Drogon burning the
Oh,
throne.
I thought you were like going to say, I don't hate Drogon, but
No, I don't hate Drogon melting down the throne. But it felt silly to me in the way that their dragon ride in the first episode felt kind of silly, and Sam's whole, oh, it's called A Song of Ice and Fire.
that was kind of stupid.
Like, things like that. It felt very much like hitting the nail on the head. This is symbolic. Yeah, we get it.
A lot of things in this episode were pretty on the nose. I think that Sam's democracy speech.
He was so into it.
Which is still hilarious.
It's kind of them like, oh, we know you guys predicted about democracy. Let's shit on it real quick.
Yeah, but were they shitting on the theory or were they actually shitting on democracy?
I have no idea.
I hope they were shitting on democracy. The way he described it and the way they reacted was so great. Why doesn't everybody get a vote? What are you, fucking nuts?
And even too, when I think it was word from what you said on the podcast last week when Tyrion and Jon were talking.
Did you catch this? Tyrion, you predicted dialogue.
Did I?
when he's talking about all the things that Daenerys did throughout the seasons, he's saying that we treated them like victories.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
I mean, yeah, I thought they had Tyrion as like an audience stand-in at that point.
They did. That's what you said, that it was a meta moment.
Yeah.
They were trying to defend themselves through Tyrion.
Like their argument was ones that people were having online about whether the Mad Queen theory made sense. Tyrion was saying, like how you said last week, how they were all treated as victories, and these people were evil that she killed, and that's how we perceive them, and you can rationalize that. And Jon was like, oh well, I mean. And Jon was still in denial about that, so it was kind of like back and forth that we've been seeing that whole week play out. And that was just a little weird moment for me. I'm like, oh, wait, yeah.
Yeah, and even though it was rushed, having Jon Snow having to make that decision, one of those impossible decisions, it's similar to what I wanted with Jaime and Cersei, where Jaime's put in this impossible situation where he has to choose. They even have that moment where Tyrion talks about how duty is the death of love, and that's what Jon Snow was put in the position.
I did like when Tyrion was like, you come up with that yourself.
I wanted Jon to take credit for it. He thought about it. I think that was the most conflicted he was. He was like, should I take credit for this or should I mention Maester Aemon?
It's so weird because he said that. I'm like, what's that from? And I found out right away. I'm like,
you
oh.
don't remember that?
What?
That's a big time Maester Aemon quote.
But like, I wasn't thinking of Maester Aemon in whatever season that was in that moment. I'm like, where have I heard that before? And he's like, oh, Maester Aemon. I'm like, yeah, it was Maester Aemon.
Yeah, I was like, Jon is definitely quoting someone, but I can't remember who it is.
That's Shakespeare.
Read it in a book once. Great quote by Maester Aemon. And people were pointing out the parallels between Maester Aemon and Jon Snow, how they both technically gave up the throne and then went to the Night's Watch. A little different for Jon. Aemon actually had to serve. I think Jon's just going to be frolicking around the north with Tormund, going on sledding rides with Ghost, and he's having a grand old time. People keep using the meme of Ramsay Bolton talking to Theon. If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention. You can't use that anymore because this was actually a very happy ending for 4 of the main characters. The 4 Stark children all kind of got what they always wanted. Not technically Sansa. She kind of developed into wanting to be a ruler, but Bran's king.
Well, she wanted to be
Did Bran
queen.
want to be king?
I kind of think he did.
Well, Sansa wanted to be queen, but not that type of queen. Like how in the earlier season she wanted to be Joffrey's queen. Now she is the monarch of the North. It's a different role, but that's the one that she developed into, and something that you can tell once everyone was saying aye to Bran, she's like, damn it.
All things considered, though, these are happy endings.
Yeah.
Bittersweet. We thought some of these characters, we all swore that Arya was dead this season.
Yes.
She might be dead within the next 2 weeks. She's going to just sail into nothing, just sail off the face of the earth, because Westeros is flat. Bran, I mean, that's your most logical choice for king. That's the guy you want as king.
Wish it was like Bran I like season 2 Bran. That was a hell of a Bran.
But the point, we always, whether it was going to be democracy, Daenerys breaking the wheel in some way, whoever got the throne, we always thought the show was going to get to this point where it's not democracy. It's more of a kind of like a constitutional monarchy in a way that they're hinting at maybe one day democracy will come to Westeros. We always knew that it was going to get to this point. Who else would be king? Jon? Maybe. I guess that would be more satisfying.
Yeah. The way it played out with Jon.
Jon got the best ending out of all of them.
I was upset until I saw him with Ghost, with Tormund, and he's just like going ranging, I guess, because we talked like the Night's Watch, what do they do now?
Well, if you, I'm thinking about it now. I think that was Bran just tricking the Unsullied. We'll send them to the Night's Watch. Grey Worms. Oh, I've heard of that. Right? They have stuff to do still. Yeah, they got plenty of stuff. He's just going to live north of the Wall.
Yeah.
And essentially, as the leader of the Free Folk, people have been calling him the King of the Free Folk. And I thought, yeah, that's kind of what he's doing. That's why I consider it the best ending. He even tells Tormund before he leaves, I wish I was going with you.
Yeah.
That's why I still consider him and Arya probably got the 2 best endings out of any character, because Arya was always an explorer. She was always on the move.
But hearing when I first said it, when Tyrion goes to visit him, and
It's a bit shocking.
And they're like, we're sending you back to the Night's Watch. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah, that's how I felt too.
like, really? Yeah. After all this, Aegon Targaryen, he's going back to the Night's Watch. But when I sat on it and I saw that last shot, I'm like, he's happy. He looked like he was just, they cut it off.
But is
just
that
before he was
disappointing
gonna
that he's
smile.
happy? Do you want an ending where Jon Snow is forced into a position where he has to do something that he doesn't want to? Rule.
I think the only I wanted him to choose going back to the north rather than getting sentenced.
Because
Because
Bran kind of hooking him up.
like with Daenerys, there are bits and pieces in earlier seasons that kind of point to her becoming the Mad Queen. There is nothing in Bran's story that ever indicated to me that he would become king of Westeros. Like,
Oh, it was ridiculous. Vegas had the odds. He was the odds favorite. I'm like, what are they doing? It's like, I'm about to make a killing. And yeah, he fucking won.
People have been... I know people who have guessed that, and I always looked at them like, you're nuts. Yeah, Bran, no.
it doesn't make any sense to me, honestly.
He's a
Like,
3-eyed raven. What makes this so disappointing is that Bran didn't have anything cool to do with the
Yeah,
3-eyed raven powers.
It's another one of the things that I think if the season had more time, they could have sold me on Bran eventually becoming the king of Westeros.
It makes sense. I mean, people were upset that it wasn't Sansa, and I kind of was too when they skipped by her. Because they kind of like panned over. They kept panning and panning, and they stopped at Bran. I'm like, oh, wait, no, keep going, keep going, keep going. But if you think about it from, like, I guess, a logical standpoint, someone who is unbiased and all-knowing would kind of be the best person to, I guess, usher in this new world. Just...
I don't think Sansa wanted it anyway.
No, she wanted the
I
North.
think if they would have asked her, she would have said no, and she would have just said, "I want the North."
Yeah. But somebody brought up, too, you have the other Lords of Westeros there. Why didn't they just all ask for their independence? That seems like the best time to ask.
Specifically, Dorne and the Iron Islands.
Dorne especially. And the Iron Islands nobody cares about. I thought they got their independence, but it's like a weird independence where they're not independent, but they think they are. It's like giving your kid brother a controller that's not plugged in. Yeah, you're independent. Dorne was independent for 100 years under Targaryen rule.
I think that once Tyrion was being brought out, and they were panning everybody, I thought we were gonna see Jon.
I also thought we were going to
And
see
then we
Jon.
didn't
I
see
thought
Jon.
like he was getting freed because in that interim, Jon had become king.
Yes, me too. I felt like the 3-week gap was a little jarring.
Yeah.
Kind of like the
Is
biggest.
it? Did they say 3 weeks? I knew time had passed only because
Yeah.
Tyrion's beard,
I
basically.
said a few weeks, I think, and I think Tyrion said he had a few weeks to think about things. But it's like the biggest moment, like the cap of the Song of Ice and Fire just happened, and now it's just, what do we do now? And it just felt weird. Like, I think we should have had more time. Like,
This should have been an episode,
yeah,
not an epilogue.
Bran can't see the future, right?
No, he can, because he saw Drogon flying over King's Landing.
bits like he doesn't. It's not like he can go pick a time in the past and see it. He can't do that for the future.
So
He
he
gets
just-
flashes.
He just gets flashes.
'Cause he saw Cersei's Mad Queen
When she blows up the set.
blows up the sap.
Because him saying, "What do you think I came back here for?" was very.
Well, I think he's just very smart.
You
So,
can deduce it too.
yeah.
I don't know that line.
Or when he
I
and
didn't
Tyrion
like it.
spoke.
We said
That's what they spoke about.
We said when that episode aired that we had wished we had seen more of that conversation. At least I said it. And I think that that's a conversation we needed to see in order, because I didn't fully believe that Tyrion would just suddenly be like, Bran is the one who needs to be king. I mean, I'm sure whatever happened in that conversation, maybe it sold him.
Yeah,
But
because
he was
mentions things
he was
that...
so unwaveringly loyal to Daenerys until like the end.
Well, it's just like they jump time and they like tell you how like what has been going on in these 3 weeks, and it was kind of just too much to drop on us. It's like we could have maybe seen that play out. It's like, here we are, Unsullied are holding King's Landing, and they have Jon and Tyrion prisoner, and the North is surrounding the gates of King's Landing. And why didn't they kill Jon right away to get their justice? They took him prisoner, And
Well, they didn't want a war.
I guess, but
Daenerys' body was also gone, so he had to have been like, yeah, I killed her.
oh yeah,
That's what I said. That Drogon cleaned the crime scene for him, and he ratted on himself.
And like Grey Worm is like dictating terms of who they're going to elect their new king, and he's allowing Tyrion to make the speech after telling him to.
You don't get to speak.
Yeah, it just felt very awkward. Like,
All right, speak.
yeah.
And then he's like, okay, now go, create your new government.
He's like, pick a.
Totally cool.
He's like, pick a king and tell us what to do with Jon and Tyrion.
All right, sign the Magna Carta. Let's wrap this up. I'm going to Noth.
Yeah.
But also, beyond like, okay, Sansa didn't even like, she was like, I'm going to become independent rather than voting for my brother to become king. What reasons did like anyone else have on that council to vote Bran king?
None.
Which, like,
Well, I think it's Davos has a reason, Sam has a reason.
but
That's
I
really
think
it.
it's also because like Bran hasn't done much this season, and like the most we've gotten, it's like Bran went away for a little while, now he's back and weird.
Nobody
watched-
knows about his power besides Tyrion.
Yeah, so like when Tyrion's like, he's the three-eyed raven, how much do the rest of them believe that? How much do they trust it?
Well,
Like, these
Jon-
are things I think we needed to see play out with other characters in order to believe that they would vote him king.
The only people there that don't know would be Yara and the Prince of Dorne. Prince of Dorne looks like he would rather be anywhere else in the world.
Like how
And he's just like, he doesn't want to like stand out, so he's like, yeah.
That's a Martell thing.
like how much was Bran flexing his powers? Like
Well,
before
Jon
that,
Royce-
he put on a clinic. He's like, oh, nameless Dornishman.
I was there.
I know who you like. He just knew who he was, and he's like, oh, okay, cool. I
Right.
trust him.
Jon Royce probably knows from Sansa.
Yeah.
again, I feel like these are things in a longer season we would have had the opportunity to see, and it would have made this decision feel more right.
Right.
Edmure's his uncle, so he's probably
Edmure's his uncle, sure.
But like how much have they been talking to Edmure?
Well, it's also just the oldest surviving son of Ned Stark. The Starks are an ancient family. It's not so ridiculous to sit a Stark on the Iron Throne for the first time. It's kind of a historic moment because they've always been such a powerful family. You can make that case, and then you almost wish that they just would have gave him something to do during the long night.
Yeah, which
If everybody could see this awesome power that he has, if it was on full display for everybody, it just became rumor. He became 1,000 eyes in one, like Bloodraven. Everybody knew when Bloodraven was at the height of his powers, he was running the kingdoms. That's essentially what Bran is. He's the new Bloodraven, so it's not unprecedented that somebody with this ability rules the 7 kingdoms, or the 6 kingdoms in this case. But you make a good point. It's just, people just don't know the extent of his abilities. Why are they blindly supporting
or
him?
if they do know, we as the audience don't know.
There's a lot of that this season, where they're telling us things that could happen, and then they're not telling us things that we should know.
Why does Bran
that we
want-
have to assume.
Bran's like, oh, we need a master of whispers. It's like, isn't that your whole thing?
Westeros is basically 1984 now.
It really is. Because he can just... I thought the same thing. He is the master of whispers,
Yeah.
right?
I thought he might have like said that as like a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, I was saying that he has a very, very dry sense of humor.
Like,
Should
I
we
could-
get a master of whisperers?
Yeah.
And then he's like, gotta go. I gotta go warg into a dragon.
I thought we were going to see that.
I
And
thought we were too.
And he's like, when they do Long May He Reign, he's like, I'll work on it. It's like, yeah, I'm sure you will.
Yeah, go, sure. It's funny that Braun is the Lord of Highgarden,
He actually got it.
but it's also kind of ridiculous that Braun is sitting at the small council. Because one of the points I was going to make defending that scene is you finally have a small council of characters that you like, that you can root for, that all have the best intentions in mind. And then there's Braun, who I guess he was just kind of a soldier doing what he was told to do, and you can trust him to be there, to be loyal to the crown, because you're the Warden of the West now. You're the Lord of Highgarden. What more do you have to gain? But I do like that final scene for Tyrion.
It's not the Warden of the West. South.
Oh,
Or
okay.
the Reach. Well, you said Lord Paramount of the Reach. That's what you said. Warden of the West is typically, presumably Tyrion's Lord of Castle Rock and Warden of the West, but...
I guess he is Lord of the Castle Rock.
Yeah.
Lord of Castle Rock, right? That's cool.
What's it? I think
He's
Cersei,
got to get married.
Does he?
Tyrion, yeah, he needs some heirs.
So does
Whatever.
Sansa.
I really wanted Sansa and Podrick to get married.
He can't. He said
No,
it
he can't.
He gave up his talents.
But it seems to me now, in retrospect, Cersei gave Braun the crossbow specifically so he could go make that deal for Highgarden, so that way he would be on that small council in the end. Plot-wise, that's why all of that stuff happened. Not for anything that ended up actually making sense.
Braun, poor House Tyrell.
Yeah. Someone said Marjorie's rolling over in her grave.
That's not a book thing. That's a show thing. We didn't have enough Tyrell kids. We just didn't want to pay enough actors.
Yeah, Garland, Willis.
Yeah, they've got a couple of heirs there. We don't even know if Marjorie and Loras might be dead. We don't know if Marjorie is going to die.
I think also, Podrick being Kingsguard material in like 2 years.
Well, the Kingsguard aren't. Meryn Tramp is on the Kingsguard.
He's at least he's like a big guy.
It's nepotism. His mom is the Lord Commander of the
Yeah.
Kingsguard. She got him the job.
You're supposed to be like the fiercest, like best knights in the whole kingdom. And Pod, I guess he got better.
He's the eighth man. How many are there? There's 7, right?
Yes.
He's the eighth man. He was only dressing up because somebody else was sick.
Okay.
He's usually suit and tie on the end of the bench.
Well, I think Aerys Okar's still alive, right?
Imagine if they brought him for the final scene. Do you think that was Howland Reed on that council of...
It's
That's another
weird
thing.
if it was, and they were just like...
You give us Edmure Tully, you don't have Mira Reed.
That
Mira
was
Reed,
disappointing.
somebody who almost gave her life so that this bastard can be king.
Her brother did give
Her
his
brother,
life.
yeah.
Jojen's just forgotten.
Little grandpa.
Yeah.
He would have been a great master of whispers.
You're a great king.
He really would have.
Damn.
Pour one out for Jojen.
All
Still alive in the books.
R.I.P. in peace. Maybe not.
He might be.
He might be paced.
Well, it's almost, you want to just kind of discuss the season as a whole because we touched on all the endings for the characters. The performances, Peter Dinklage, his best episode of the season, his best episode in a long time. He got a couple of good episodes back to back here. Drogon, where did he go?
Valyria.
Yeah.
They say they saw him flying east, too, so I don't know. Stop by Dario's house. Say what's up. Bring him the news.
I saw a meme, it was
Bring him
Dario.
the body.
Poor Dario. Another plot point that it was just so they didn't have to pay that actor. Because she talks about cultivating alliances in Westeros, that there might be marriages. Also, all the foreshadowing for her child, I wonder if that's something that happens in the book. Because I'm wondering in the book, what's the time period of her transition into the Mad Queen? It has to be longer. Because the man doesn't have a budget, and he's shown that he'll go over 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Winds is going to be 1,500. And we're going to see a lot of Mad Queen Daenerys, because that book begins with Daenerys burning the cows. Because Drogon is there with her. He didn't fly away in the book. He's just still there.
I don't know where he is at that point. I know she gets surrounded, but...
I think they mentioned that he's just flying overhead.
Oh, I'm not sure. But,
So she might start that right away. Just starts off Winds of Winter, destroying all the Dothraki, rather than just the cows that trap her.
who knows? I think it will be more developed, and I think we deserved a little bit more from that. Especially her character, having taken this journey with her for all these seasons, and for that to happen in the span of an episode was unfortunate. And I don't know, I think it would have hit a lot harder and would have been more impactful if it was properly developed, like most of the plot points of this episode, and pretty much the whole season.
It seems to me this whole season was like a jumble of character moments that we didn't necessarily need. We got character moments, but they weren't the ones that actually would have informed the stuff that they were doing for the most part. And then it was big battle, and then more random moments, big battle. Oh, like they're teleporting everywhere.
It's like they tried to hit everything they wanted to, like, let's say, for example, the episode following The Long Night. It's like, all right, they had like a checklist, like, all right, we need to make Gendry Lord of Storm's End, check. We need Brienne and Jaime to hook up, check. We need this to happen, check.
Well, they literally had a checklist.
Yeah, and I think from the earlier seasons, it was very evident, like, Robb's War, going from Winterfell to Harrenhal, then back to the Twins, like, that took 3 seasons. That's like there was story to be had within his travels, and there was stuff to develop. Here, it's like we have point A and point B, but nothing really in between.
Well, Game of Thrones is such a slow burn.
Mm-hmm.
That's why these last 2 seasons are such a disappointment, is that they let the story tell itself rather than telling the story. Here, they're just telling the story. They're hitting all these plot points. They're not letting these moments breathe, these travels unfold. Everything is being rushed. When people tell me that they can't get into the show, it's usually because it's too slow. Season 1 is too slow. Season 2, the first 4 seasons are slow. And it's built on these character moments. It's built on this great dialogue. That's why it's not going to ruin the show for me, because those first 4 seasons are always going to be great. Love Season 6. Season 5 is good. These last 2 seasons, they just got away from everything that made the show great. Like you said, it moved at a snail's pace. It was a slow burn. All of a sudden, it becomes a firecracker. That's just so out of line with what the show was that it's jarring. It just takes you out of it for an entire season. It's not an episode. It's an entire season. It's just we just need to hit this beat, this beat, this beat.
I wonder how they all flow together if you sat down and watched them all back to back to back to back. That's interesting too, because I feel like on their own, the episodes, I've enjoyed it pretty much every episode this season from like an individual standpoint. And then when you connect it to the rest of the story, and when you connect the plot points together from episode to episode, and that's when it kind of gets thrown off a little bit for me. I think I liked pretty much every, and I don't necessarily hate the finale. I think it was just what we said, disappointing, a little rush, but I do enjoy some of the moments. I think the first 40 minutes were very well done, but when you take a step back and realize, would have liked more leading up to that moment, and seeing that last shot with all the Starks, I like that too, but it just didn't all connect for me. And I think, like I said, on an individual basis, I can like each episode, but when they all connect and try to apply it to the rest of the story, that's when it kind of loses it for me.
It's also kind of weird too, because I think all the actors, they've been doing amazing this whole season. What's selling a lot of these moments for me is because the actors themselves are portraying it so well. But it's like what they're doing in the context of the whole show, and it's kind of like this isn't that good.
Yeah, and you have to grade it on the curve of Game of Thrones. It's still good TV, but it's not even that it's bad in quality. It's fundamentally different from how they used to tell the story. They're telling the story in a different way, and that just throws it off.
Well, I think
it throws it off track.
I think the user rating on IMDb is like a 4 point something. That's not a 4 point something.
On the Game of Thrones scale, it kind of is.
But just like
it's just going to be different, especially when the fan base is this big. That's just kind of something that you have to accept.
No, I know what you mean. Judging it from, I guess, the first 4 seasons, it could be a little bit.
But even last season, when you look at the critic scores, last season, not the best, but kind of on pace with the season 5.
What's like this?
I never got under an 87 on Rotten Tomatoes. This season, critically, is bad.
I know.
It's a bad rating from the critics. These aren't fans. These are critics who are watching. I always defend critics because they're watching hundreds of shows and movies a year. They watch, they move on. Mm-hmm. They're not spending time mulling over the theories, and critics don't like it.
I think you're wrong about that.
But they do. But critics have loved it for 7 seasons, and then it's this season where just
because they know the story. I think they're in line in this aspect. Critics and fans are kind of thinking in the same way. Because if you did believe that and it was just I take this, watch it, and move on, then from from a standalone aspect, if you're not thinking about all the theories and everything that happened before, if you view these episodes on their own, and you would think that it's good.
But from a standalone aspect, there are people like Marissa who she just doesn't even think it's good.
Oh yeah, there are.
It's not even in context of the entire series. It's just this isn't good. The Long Night, people had serious technical problems with that episode.
That's like a 70-something, but
70. That's bad for
I'm
Game
just
of
saying,
Thrones
like
epic. The next episode, The Last of the Starks, 54%.
That's ridiculous.
But there were just plot holes that were in that episode.
No, it was, but I think the episode itself still wasn't awful. And that's where that's just I get different how I guess I think from other people is like something in the 4s is absolutely just nothing good about it. I don't think The Room is probably like a 4.1 on IMDb. Like, come on.
Yeah, that's wrong.
It's just how you view it, I guess. And if you want to compare it to the series or just television in general.
It's similar to The Last Jedi in the sense that critics love The Last Jedi, but the problems with that movie is that people just feel that it didn't fit with what came before it. But it takes it a step further now because I think people are... My problem is that it doesn't fit with what came before it. But other people are just having problems with... They think that the writing is bad, plot holes, that when you just take it as for what it is, as a standalone season, they're just not enjoying it. And the finale, for a fantasy epic... That's an underwhelming last episode. For a story like this with so much lore, it's so intricate, it's so complex, for it to end that way, where it was just emotionally weightless, that's really unfortunate for a show like this.
I guess season-wise, a disappointing season overall. What saved it for me is that there are scenes that are beautiful, shots that are beautiful. The actors are all doing like amazing. They're really selling their performances. Like last episode, or I guess this episode, whatever. The dragon wings behind Daenerys. I love that.
Oh, did you see this on Twitter? Someone like praised that shot and people are like, oh, it's really not that hard. It's a CG. You pay someone to do that for you.
Oh,
it's
yeah, the cinematography. It's become a meme.
It's like, yo, are you... That is just such a terrible, terrible, terrible take.
It's not that hard. to
it's like,
create a
you just
CGI
pay
dragon.
someone to make that CGI for you. It's not really a shot. It's green
It's
screen.
called imagination.
Yeah, it's
Called you have to imagine that shot and then bring it to life.
yeah.
Anybody can do that.
Or it's like, all you have to do is pay for it. It's like, all right, all you have to do for the Sistine Chapel is paint it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, he just imagined that in his head. Anybody can do that.
Yeah.
They just thought about it.
Oh, yeah, Mona Lisa. Just got to put,
Picasso.
paint it.
Yeah, just two-dimensional blocks and just switching them around. Anybody could do that.
Well, we're not comparing.
Isaac Newton thinking of gravity, that was simple, right? Apple fell on his head. Anybody could do that.
Not comparing it to like, Renaissance art, but I'm just saying that, that's something.
No, but I hate that
they
idea when
envisioned,
people are like, "Oh, anybody can do this."
drew out the
somebody
concept.
did it first.
Yeah. Well, it's not like a ridiculous. Like, it's not like, oh my god, I wasn't like. It's a shot that you can kind of expect, I guess. Like, it made sense to have Daenerys with the dragon wings.
Yeah, that's why it was so surprising when everybody saw it.
But I'm saying, like, the concept is. It's not like a crazy concept, but just visualizing that, putting all the pieces together with the ashes going down out of the remnants of King's Landing, Red Keep, whatever, and having Drogon land behind him, and just in that moment, her walking out. It's a great shot.
Yeah. Nothing more, nothing less. People
Yeah.
don't have to. I want to talk about the Long Night.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm off of the Long Night hype train, in which it was just me and you driving it. Because now it feels. I was so on board with Cersei Lannister being the main villain after the Night King died, because I still think that's a great moment. But now it feels like all of that lore kind of. The word I keep using is underwhelming. And it's connected to so many characters, specifically Jon and Bran. Bran went through so much to act as bait for the Night King. What did he do for the Long Night? He
the
was
two
just
characters most involved with the Night King, who are still around at this point, I think, are Jon and Bran. And neither of them really got a moment with the Night King to do anything basides Bran, like, looking scared, sort of.
Now I'm fully on board that it should have been Jon who killed him.
It should have been. I don't know.
I don't
still
mind Arya killing the Night King, but
it made for,
why resurrect Jon?
Well, he had to leave the Night's Watch to get Winterfell back from the Boltons and basically bring everyone together for the Long Night. But I think I was the same way when it happened. I loved that episode. I thought it was perfect, the way they killed him, and they set it up for Cersei, but then she really had nothing left to do for this entire season and for the season as a whole. Because she wasn't in those two episodes. She wasn't in Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and she wasn't in The Long Night. And when the Night King died, I'm like, yes, let's get back to it. Let's get back to the Game of Thrones. Let's get back to Cersei. Let's get back to some politics. Set it up for a smaller ending. And I guess we did get kind of a smaller ending this episode, but it was just with characters that it was with Daenerys rather than Cersei.
I think we should have just seen this coming with the 6 episodes. We really weren't anticipating this. We thought the Long Night was going to go at least to episode 5. I think we all said that on it. It was at the very end of our battle for Winterfell. What if the Night King dies in this episode? We turned out to be right.
Well, I always said that I wanted to see this play out as like a multiple episode run where it's just blow after blow, and they're on, they're barely surviving, they're making it out, they're retreating. It's just an absolute kind of struggle. And it was for the hour and 20 minutes, but just not in the way that I envisioned. And again, I didn't hate I liked the episode, but I think when
characters surviving, so many characters got happy endings,
Which is weird.
Yeah.
For Game of Thrones.
But I remember we were saying in season 7, I always go back to that Beyond the Wall, when we thought 6 of these dudes weren't coming back alive. When they all survived, we were like, okay, well, next season 8 is when characters are going to die.
And the only one who died was
Jorah, Ed,
the Hound.
And the Hound died in a way that was satisfying. But I'm talking about specifically who gave their lives for the battle against the White Walkers.
Thoros.
The White Walkers didn't fight? Thoros. Why weren't the White Walkers jumping on fucking castles, throwing people with their super strength, freezing people with, like the X-Men dude?
Well, I think it was kind of a strategy, I guess you can justify it as, like, if one of them dies,
budget strategy.
Part of their army dies,
That was another stupid reveal. I understand that it's about the politics, but it was always, here's some epic fantasy flavor, and that flavor to me was very, very watered down.
Well, I think when you were talking about just how we should have seen this coming with the 6 episodes, but we had 2-hour episodes and 4-hour 20-minute episodes. You can develop stories within that amount of time. It's a lot of time.
But there was a lot of story.
Yes, but I felt like...
You're talking about a story that they've been building up
But very often in these episodes, like 20 minutes pass, and you're like, well, we're still on this, and we're just waiting to move on to the next thing. And then it started picking up, and then it ended, and then
But there was also filler.
they recycled it.
They had filler in this season. Episode 2 is just filler.
I still stand by that episode 1 and 2 should have been one episode.
Should have been one episode.
Well, episode 2 is probably the best episode of the season for a lot of people.
What significantly happened in episode 2?
Brienne got knighted.
Brienne got knighted, and Jaime, the trial of Jaime. That's really it.
Arya.
Arya banged Gendry.
Yeah, hell yeah.
This is why we're not watching White Walkers tap dance on people. So people can bang and other people can get knighted. There was filler in a 6-episode season.
This is an interesting tweet I found on the old Twitter timeline. I don't know if I agree with it or not, but I'll see what your guys' opinion is, seeing as you're both big Harry Potter
opinions are.
fans. What are you, fucking Davos? Let me speak the way I speak. You know what I'm trying to say, so is it really that wrong? No. Just because some fucking big shot in Webster Dictionary decided to...
Some big shot in Webster Dictionary.
Yeah, or at Oxford, whatever. Made all these rules up. Doesn't mean I have to follow them. Who are they? It says D&D and the rest of the writing team.
Who are them? That's what you should have said. That would have been funnier.
Yeah. D&D and the rest of the writing team basically got tasked with the equivalent of finishing Harry Potter if J.K. dipped after the Order of the Phoenix, except 3 times larger and more complex. So the way I see it, the fact that literally any of it works for anyone is kind of impressive.
It's a fair point. To counter that, I would say you have the plot points for the show ending. You can't find a cooler way to get to these moments. You have a team of writers who are veterans who have been working on the show for years. You have D&D. My theory is that, truly, somebody tweeted this last night, and they were like, you could see the subtext of Season 8 is that D&D really want to make Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's my theory, is that the show became... It took them 2 years. We can't forget this. It took them 2 years to film 6 episodes of television. That's insane. That's unprecedented. And it wasn't because there were delays because an actor got hurt or there was budgetary problems. It was because it took that fucking long. It took 55 nights to shoot one sequence of an episode. So that's not me defending them, but that's just the reality of they are human beings. And it seems to me that they just got tired of making the show.
Yeah.
If they wanted to hit the ending that stayed true to the first 4 seasons, they needed to go a couple of more seasons. That's just what they needed to do. They decided not to. They thought they could wrap it up in 13 more episodes. I think they proved that they could not do that. I don't know. What do you think, Marissa?
I mean...
Do you agree with the Harry Potter point?
Sort of. In that, Harry Potter did change a lot of stuff from the books. Like, Order of the Phoenix as a movie, I feel like, is an example of, like, something that's just terrible. Like, the 5th Harry Potter movie is not the greatest of the franchise. By any means. It's Prisoner of Azkaban. But
Facts.
I've said this like 10 million times, but I haven't read the Game of Thrones books. And
you haven't read them since last week when I told you to read them?
Nope. From what I know, the 5th season is the last one where they had anything to work with as far as book stuff goes, beyond like a literal list of bullet points for how they thought it was going to end. And they've cut a lot of storylines, like even before season 5, right? There are big things in the books that they didn't have time for in the show, so they got cut, or characters who died who are still alive in the books, whatever. At this point, the books and the show are entirely different things. Like, there's the meme going around about how now Game of Thrones fans know what it's like when the anime outpaces the manga.
Yeah.
I think of Full Metal Alchemist. The first Full Metal Alchemist, the ending is completely different for the actual manga because they went and did their own thing.
And a lot of people like it.
Yeah, like, I like the first Full Metal Alchemist. There doesn't have to be a weird purity thing about proper adaptations being the better version of it. So I think what hurt the show is that instead of trying to wrap up their own things that they created and the things they had to cut like out of necessity for what is realistic for a TV show compared to books, would have been better than them trying to fulfill a list of bullet points. And I think that's ultimately what hurt the show. Obviously people would have been upset if the show didn't end the way they thought the books were going to end.
But they could have said, hey, we didn't have books to adapt. We didn't want to try and jumble this up because we didn't know how George was going to end it.
Yeah, they're just going to be like, the show is something different now, so we're going to end the show the way we believe that
George
these
is the one who
characters'
said
journey
that.
ends. And I think that's what should have happened. And instead we got these last couple seasons that were really rushed because they didn't they didn't take the time to try to create their own story. They were trying to just like force everyone into what they thought George was going to do in the end.
Well, it's kind of like the butterfly effect. They've changed so many things, cut out different storylines, added some things, and naturally that's going to affect how they get to the ending. So I always thought the books and show would end the same way, but they would just get there differently. Felt like they just wrapped up everything they tried to create and kind of just, it's very noticeable that the shift went back to like, all right, now we have to end it the way it's supposed to end.
It's like their list was Arya kills the Night King, maybe Bran becomes king.
There's no Night King in the book.
Whatever. I haven't read them, obviously. But like all this stuff, like, okay, maybe Arya ends up vanquishing whatever the ultimate other threat is, or she plays a major role in it. Sansa becomes, I guess, queen in the north. Bran becomes king. Maybe all this stuff does happen, but the show didn't do a good job with it, I think.
My question for you now is, where do you rank Game of Thrones? And you've seen more television series probably than both of us. So, I mean, you have a bias too because it is your favorite show of all time. Does it diminish it? Because I remember people were talking about last year that you can never put Game of Thrones in that elite company of The Sopranos, The Wire, and Breaking Bad because of season 7 and season 5.
Oh, The Wire season 2. That's and Sopranos.
You don't like the docs?
And The Sopranos. Everything after season. I don't know. I don't want to put an exact number on it, but that show got repetitive.
You want to get us killed?
Repetitive as fuck.
You want to get us whacked?
No, it was a good show, and I really like it, but it definitely had its warts, too.
How many shows get the Breaking Bad 5 seasons that are all great? It's almost impossible.
No.
Yeah. I can't think of another one. The only one that's coming to mind is...
Well,
people always say if you ended Dexter after season 4, it's one of the best shows of all time.
I think it's five seasons is the right number for a TV show.
Well, see, that's the thing with Game of Thrones. They needed to go 10 seasons.
Yeah.
It's the one show that warranted more seasons.
I think especially with, well, if we're talking about just endings, 6 Feet Under had a great ending. Breaking Bad, I think, had a perfect ending. I don't know, it's hard. It really is hard. You're going to have some ups and downs, and Game of Thrones definitely did have ups and downs even before this season. But I think from the scale and just everything that they were able to do, it's more influential, it's more iconic. I think it's easier to latch on to the characters in Game of Thrones rather than a Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is cleaner, no doubt about it. And it probably is the most perfect you can make a television show. I'm not saying Game of Thrones is perfect, but just for me personally, it will never... This doesn't take away from how I view the show as a whole. I don't think it could be... It's hard when you're trying to rank it as far as best. It's definitely took, I think, a couple steps back due to the finale being so polarizing and rushed, and it wasn't the proper ending the show deserved, but...
It's a double-edged sword of the mystery box as well, because very much so, this show is a mystery box. There's so many things that are just left unsaid, and he opens the show up for theories and the books for theories for the fans to speculate and try and predict what is going to happen. And once we always say, when you pull back the curtains and what's behind is not what you expected, or it's not as epic or as awesome as you thought it would be, that can kind of ruin the revisit when you look back on the show.
Well, I've said this before. It was something where no matter how it ended, if you pick any number of the scenarios that could have played out, people are going to be upset regardless, because some people wanted Jon, some people wanted Daenerys, some people wanted Sansa, some people wanted Braun, some people wanted Arya, some people wanted Tyrion. So you can't please all those people in a way where they're ultimately satisfied with the outcome, but there's a way where, like Marissa said before, you can have it play out and develop where, hey, I wanted Sansa to win, but I get why Bran is the king.
Yeah, the debates aren't about who should have been king or who should have done this. The debates are about, why is Jon a Targaryen? Those are the wrong questions you want your fan base asking.
Why did he get resurrected?
Why did he get resurrected? Why did Bran go through all the Three-Eyed Raven stuff? Why did this happen? Those are not the questions you want to be asking. You don't want people asking about questions about stuff that happened years ago. And that's where it feels that we are. It feels like there are loose ends that haven't been tied up. That's almost worse. You need to tie up loose ends. You can leave some things unanswered. There are mysteries. I mean, one of my favorite shows of all time, Twin Peaks, is the king of just leaving things unanswered. But that's kind of the style of the show. For this, there are things that just never came into fruition. And that's kind of weird.
You know that the BuzzFeed Unsolved meme where one guy's like, I've connected it, and the other guy's like, you haven't connected shit. And then he's like, no, I've connected it. I feel like that's what this season has been.
Yeah.
It's like, D&D going, oh no, we tied it up, like it's good now, and everyone's like, you didn't.
Right. So that's almost worse than an ending that I hate. That I would, because I don't hate the ending.
No,
I don't hate what happened. I feel like I'm left empty by it.
it felt
That there's
like
something else that there should be a season 9.
it felt like I could have read the plot points on a leak and got the same.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's like that's kind of how it played out, like bullet points, like plot points, like you read spoilers, and there wasn't much in between to connect those, because I think you can look at plot points and be like, and you can have like a, you can kind of feel the way how that would play out and how you would feel about that. Because I was upset when people were like, oh, you're gonna hate this episode. Obviously they read the plot leaks, but I'm like, hey, just because you don't like the bullet points that you just read doesn't mean you don't know how it happens or the in between. But we really didn't get the in between.
I think Jon deserved better ultimately.
For Jon Snow being one of the main characters of the show, he really didn't do much this season. People keep making the jokes about his lines of dialogue. You're my queen. I don't want it. I love you. The best meme was when he unlocked a new piece of dialogue. It was screams at dragon.
Yeah.
Jon Snow. Those are a lot of the questions. It's why was he a Targaryen? Why did he come back to life? Is he Azor Ahai? Is he not? And we made the defense that he is the most important person for uniting the North against that threat.
Yeah, that's the answer. He is not even Azor Ahai. That's why he came back. And I think the Targaryen thing is the bigger criticism you can have. You can make some connections. I mean, we've seen why he came back and how all that played out. I think the thing with Jon is mostly is that him being a Targaryen was played off to be such a big deal and big moment, and it only really led to a couple of tough conversations with Daenerys.
Right.
And you can maybe connect that for him being like a reasoning for her to go mad, but you could make that leap other ways. You don't need that.
I wonder if he's going to be enticed in the book to try and take the throne when he finds out, because he is a different character. Mm-hmm. He's known to play the game a little bit more dishonorably than Jon. I wonder if that's going to change his mindset in the book when he finds out that he is the last surviving male Targaryen.
Well, he was ready to fucking abandon a Night's Watch to kick Ramsay Bolton's ass.
Right. So maybe there's a moment in the book where that struggle between him and Daenerys comes to life more so than we saw in the show, because everybody kept saying Daenerys is going to view you as a threat, and it looked like she never did. There were one scene, it was after the long night, after they were celebrating, where she says, don't tell anybody because they'll try to divide us. And it was one person, Varys, who tried to divide them.
Well, it's not
and then he didn't want to bang her because she was his aunt. If that's the reveal, it's Jon needs to be a Targaryen so he won't bang Daenerys. So then she goes crazy.
In the books, too, I mean, there's another Targaryen, quote-unquote, that could lead.
Well, people think that he's going to be on the throne instead of Cersei, that they gave Cersei young Griff's arc, that young Griff defeats Cersei in Winds of Winter, and then it's Daenerys versus young Griff. More people are going to support young Griff anyway, because he's going to claim he's a male Targaryen. That's what's going to kind of drive Daenerys crazy. So they kind of combined young Griff into Jon and Cersei in the show, but that's all speculation.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, she's going to have another person that she...
He should have been in the show. His absence is more noticeable after season 8. He should have been in the show.
Well, he wasn't.
Which I think, like what we said earlier, is why the show maybe should have abandoned, like, George saying, this is how the books are going to end, or these are the major things that will happen in the books, and instead go with their own thing, because they've eliminated and added way too many things for it to end cohesively for both mediums.
Yeah, they're missing pieces. You're trying to build something and you're missing the foundation.
It's like how, like, Varys' motivations, like, they don't make sense anymore, all that stuff.
That ties to young Griff as well.
I feel like if you were to read, I haven't done this yet, but the Wikipedia plot outlines for all the seasons, I feel like season 1 you would have so much more detail and, like, little moments where this would be, like how we said, Jon finds out he's a Targaryen. Jon and Dany fight. Dany contemplates what this means. Dany goes mad. It's plot points.
I think a lot of it can also be felt, like, the first 4 seasons, or at least the first season definitely, they're like, we're broke, how do we get more money? Or, like, we're indebted to the Lannisters, all this stuff. Like, that's a really big part, I think, of the first season. And then this season, it's Westeros is definitely devastated by this war. King's Landing is gone. The High Garden is... who even knows what's going on in High Garden? People are definitely starving everywhere. It's apparently winter. How is anyone, how are you going to rule a country, or not a country, a kingdom like this? It seems like they might have like no resources left, little to no resources. So even if Bran is king, how smoothly could it possibly go after that?
Oh, it's hell. It's going to be absolute hell. I think that's why he named Tyrion Hand. So you're cleaning this shit up.
I have like that Seinfeld finale moment too. Somebody said that at the.
It really is them in the prison.
Yeah.
Just all making jokes. Well, the Master of Coin thinks that the Master of Ships should lend me one of his ships. Well, the Archmaester thinks.
Well, yeah, they had to make sure you knew everyone's position.
I once brought a honeycomb and a jackass into a brothel.
That scene also felt kind of out of place.
That scene makes me sad, honestly. Not in a way where, I'm saying goodbye to all my buddies. I'm gonna miss these guys. I like that scene. That's probably my favorite scene of the episode.
I like that scene, but it's also kind of like, how many wars have all of you been through? And King's Landing is devastated.
And they're all happy.
And they're making jokes about brothels.
I know. There was just
a joke around.
There was a genocide the night before.
There was a few weeks.
Oh yeah, well, okay. Yeah,
but
we're a couple weeks away from the genocide.
I feel like they could have hit that right note of them making jokes in the face of like the overwhelming amount of work that they need to do, and instead it didn't. For me, it didn't hit that way.
Yeah, they weren't accounting for all that. They just weren't. Like,
they were just making some funny jokes. But, like, realistically, talking about how in King's Landing, you need to rebuild the brothels first.
People need houses.
I don't know what I want to say about Jon. There's, like, I guess ultimately about Jon, I'm not really happy with where he ended up. And I think it hinges on him not choosing to go back to the Night's Watch immediately. It seems like he is going to end up happy there.
Mm-hmm.
Him getting sentenced to that, I don't know, it felt wrong to me. I don't know. It's like he goes to the
Well, I think that was Bran being clever. I think you need to not look at it as a sentence, as Bran setting him free.
Yeah, it's just like,
it was him tricking Grey
It made
Worm.
me think of why he went to the Night's Watch in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because he was a bastard, and though he kind of hit the jackpot as far as bastards go. Like, he went there because he was like, this is the most I can offer, this is the only place for me, really. And he grew there, like, he made friends there, but he was also ultimately betrayed. And I feel like him dying and then coming back, in the show at least, and saying, like, my watch has ended, was him, I guess, in a way, deciding, like, his worth is more, he has more worth than just being at the Night's Watch. But after Resurrection, beyond Battle of the Bastards, he didn't do anything.
No.
Not really. Like, yes, he brought everyone together, but him personally, his cool moments were, like, drastically reduced.
He is something where, when it first happened, I agree. I was like, are you kidding me? But then, like, seeing him in that moment and his character throughout all the seasons not wanting to be in positions of power. And
yeah, he's free.
It's kind of him setting him free. And it's kind of like...
It was only him. I don't think there was any other men in black cloaks. It was just him and the wildlings.
Yeah. And
I don't think he's ever going back to Castle Black.
No, and that's nice for his character because
he told Arya to visit him though.
Well, I think he was under the impression at that point that the Night's Watch was still a thing, and then he got there and he was like, "Oh, this is what this is now. We're just chilling."
Yeah.
Yeah.
No rules.
No rules.
It's weird, like, who has dominion over the quote unquote Night's Watch now?
I think that was just Bran playing the game.
Yeah, but I would say too. I mean, him finally being free, like, I think I'd have been sadder for his character if he would had the rule during peacetime, like, and try to pick up all the pieces and put them all together. That's like the terrible ending for Jon and his character.
It's bittersweet though, because he gets the throne. It's a good man sitting on the Iron Throne or sitting in a position of power, but now it's his mess to clean up. You'll be fighting their wars forever, as Alistair Thorne tells him. Instead, I see this as an extremely happy ending for Jon Snow. This is the best possible ending. This is what he wanted. Mm-hmm. He's with his wolf. He's with Tormund. He's probably going to find a nice young wildling gal.
I guess it might just be the moment when they tell him he's getting sentenced to go back to... He doesn't seem happy in that moment. And it might, like, he's been held up for weeks. Like, we don't know what he's been doing in that time. I don't know. There's just something about that specific moment when he finds out he has to go back to the Night's Watch that, I don't know, it just made me sad for Jon.
It did for me too, yeah.
Like, I feel like he deserved better.
And then he sees Tormund and he sees Ghost and he's like, you know.
Him petting Ghost, I just, like, felt the internet.
Yes.
Going, oh my god, he's finally petting Ghost.
I was so happy when that happened. Yeah, so season 8, spoiler discussion, it's our last one of all time, really. So It's been an interesting season, to say the least. I hope you guys have enjoyed these spoiler discussions, because we have enjoyed making them. Regardless of how we feel about the season, it's always fun to talk about Game of Thrones. And yeah, for Aaron, the Nerd Soup Monkey, Marissa, I'm Bo Oliver. Make sure that you don't abandon us during our long night. Winter is truly coming for Nerd Soup.
Now the post-credit scenes, Marissa will return.
Yeah, that's it. It's Marissa's channel now. Hey guys, thank you for watching this video, and before we go, I want to quickly thank our Patreon supporters. Without your support, we wouldn't be able to grow and evolve as a channel, so thank you for your generous pledges. If you are interested in supporting our channel through Patreon, visit www.patreon.com/nerdsoup, and you can see the different rewards we offer to our Patreon supporters. T-shirts, mugs, stickers, access to our behind-the-scenes video, and more. Thanks again for watching this video, and make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Or dislike, don't share, and unsubscribe. It's a binary world, folks.